Hello, everybody. This is Between Two Teachers, and this is our episode here on Friday, October the 7th. We bring you the news far and wide about educational issues you need to know about, and some best practices and call to action. These are the latest issues that are really important for us to stay caught up on and sometimes to take some action for sure. So my name is Consuelo Lara.
And my name is Madeline Cronenberg. And as always, we will begin today's episode with our land acknowledgement. We pause to acknowledge that we have gathered today on the ancestral territory of Huichin, which is part of the unceded land of the Chochenyo and Karkan-speaking Muwekma Ohlone people. We remember their continued connection to this region and give thanks to them for allowing us to live, work, learn, and pray on their traditional homeland. We offer our respect to their elders and Ohlone people of the past and present. And we continue to suggest that you help securing justice for the Muwekma Ohlone people and advocate for their acceptance into the federal registry of tribes so that they are not cut out of benefits that they absolutely deserve. And also that you recognize and support making sure all students learn the true history of the natives in California and really across the country, wherever you're listening to this, because those curriculums exist or they don't, they can be created where we center our understanding of the beginning of this country with an understanding of who was here and how they got here and what happened to all of them. And that kind of curriculum does exist and can here in the East Bay can be found in the East Bay Regional Park website. So thank you for that. And we want to remind you, when we remember to remind you, to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. We always appreciate knowing who's here watching us. So this week, we're going to talk about some national news, and the most interesting national news that I think was really not even mentioned very much around education had to do with the hurricane. We had this gigantic hurricane in Florida, Hurricane Ian, which killed over 100 people, destroyed many buildings, and among those buildings that were destroyed were 14% of the schools in the two school districts in the counties that were most affected, which were Lee and Sarasota County, which means that those schools are not operating. And those were the 14% were totally destroyed. There's even, another larger number of buildings that have been damaged. So we don't talk about the fact that these children have been, and everybody, the staff and everybody in those communities have been, are going through a complete relocation, very similar to what happened in Katrina for many of them.
Yes, absolutely. And so what, terrible disruption to their schooling. I mean, so you can't even do something like go online. Even all that structure is been destroyed. So
no, that's right. And the similarity. Remember, after Katrina, they didn't have school for a year. Right. So in some places, and I don't think that in this case you have it as centralized as Katrina, where you had one entire school district that was totally wiped out, which is what happened in New Orleans. But here you do have a large number of schools where families are going to have to be relocating throughout Florida or other places, and put in FEMA, put in a lot of different housing. So I just wanted to call it out because it sort of had the educational impact of the hurricane hasn't really been covered at all very much in the media. No. And it's definitely there.
This is part of the bigger issue of school safety, hazards, being prepared for the worst possible scenarios and having plans, not just a site plan, but a whole overall catastrophe plans in place.
That's right. And here's the thing. Most often, certainly here in California, very often your school buildings are your emergency centers.
Yes. Yes, that's right.
Right? Now, if you had gone to one of those buildings that is completely demolished in Florida.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why
Yeah.
that needs to be a priority, to keep having safe buildings and plans for these kind of catastrophes, because it helps not just the students, and it's the whole community.
It's the whole, their community. Schools are community centers.
Yeah.
Right. Apart from the community school, they are really community centers, and they're built like that across the country.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that struck me when I was watching the coverage of the hurricane.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's something to consider, this aspect of safety.
Yeah.
Locally, an interesting conversation that came up at the local school board was around transforming central office. And there's certainly a truth to the fact that every aspect of all organizations can go through transformation and improvement, right? And so the central office systems, what this conversation was about was basically something that everybody needs to do, but now this is being, there are some consultants who've come in specifically with strategies to do this. And really what it is more than anything else is breaking down the silos in departments. You know, and I think that we can all learn from that. That can be done, but whether or not you need to have an entire consulting team come in to tell you to do that is another question. And how much energy you put into the process of doing that is another question, because when you look at anyway, the ways to break them down, and it sort of is the kind of thing that is a requirement. And in this district, we did an equity audit last year, which also spoke to silos, right? The idea that some of the things that happen and things that get duplicated because nobody's talking to each other, it's not a new idea. They're not the only ones who have that problem, and there are ways to deal with it, but they're dealing with it by having more and more consultants come in and giving them essentially the same strategies, but just sort of packaged a little differently. But anyway, I did want to call it out because a lot of language, a lot of time was put into it. And obviously it is a thing in the consultant world in education, right? Looking at central office transformation.
All too often, it's just a colossal waste of time and money. And it takes away from, it's just busy work for the administrators.
It really creates the need for a level of bureaucracy that you don't need. I mean, if they weren't just there talking to each other about what are they, the amount of time they're spending creating reports to each other about this is it's a lot of time where they could maybe be doing something else.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And
the other thing,
at the same time, you could be talking about achievement and doing something about achievement, student success, supporting teachers, all the things that make a difference with their children. Okay, but if you're waiting till this happens before you can work on those issues, that's a big problem.
Now that is really true, because you've built in, you've given yourself a timeline that sort of freezes you from acting. And then there's this whole question of goal setting.
Yeah.
And I'll just call this out. You know, there's goal setting and there's goal setting. So if your goal is continued improvement, that's really not a goal, because don't we all get better as human beings every day? I mean, continued improvement is not measurable. I mean, it is measurable, but really it's not, there's no level of real accountability there. I mean, there really isn't. It's the opposite of the big audacious, the big audacious goal that people talk about. But at least a big audacious goal gives you something to shoot for rather than continued improvement. And I think when you look at goals, you really want to come in and hang your hat on something that says, this is really, this is why things are better because I was here. And continued improvement is not the language I would use for that. It's so incremental. I mean, it's very difficult to defend, I think. And when you're looking at trying to inspire people by your goals, that's what goals are supposed to do, right? Inspire your team. That's not something that's going to do that.
We listen to these board meetings and we're just always disappointed, aren't we? It's so much that could be, we've had such great success in the past. We've with teacher salaries, we had attained that. We had,
we were the highest paid district in the county. And now, rather than having that as an area of saying, when you talk about attract and retain teachers and staff, saying we want you to be the highest paid, we'll do whatever it takes to do that because we respect and appreciate you and want to support you. That's not the direction they're going in. Right? Yeah. I mean, that's another reason when we talk about different things like teacher housing, which we're going to talk about, that's another way to respect and want to attract and retain people, not the language that they're using.
Okay.
Anyway, so I just wanted to mention that. Then the call outs, so our big shout outs, first of all, still to the Yes on 28 people. The election is coming up. We're now getting next week we'll be getting our ballots. So for everyone who's watching and listening to us in California, please vote yes on 28 so that arts and music are not once again on the chopping block, as they always are when funding goes up and down, which it always does. There's that. And then a big shout out to a group of organizers from Oakland and Englewood and Los Angeles, who did something that really hasn't been done before, in that they recognize that some of the biggest financial problems that we have in the state come from a bureaucratic organization that was formed after the Richmond Unified bankruptcy in the early 90s, essentially to provide audit support and financial support, such as it was, to districts in financial disarray. And that is called FCMAT. And FCMAT operates and puts trustees into districts that don't meet the fiscal requirements that the county and the state has for them. So, but the people at FCMAT are not elected. They're somehow appointed by the governor and whatever the process is, perhaps by the state, somebody from the State Board of Education. He may have an appointment, and there are some charter organizations that are somehow able to appoint. And they get the opportunity to literally provide the rubber stamp for whether you can do something or not do something. The amount of raises you can offer your team, how your negotiations. If you have a trustee, all your money issues go through that trustee. And this trustee is somebody who's not. They may come in and work with you, but they're really not of the district. They're not from the district. They're not responsible to people in the district. And up until now, as far as I know, they've never had to confront people from the district. People from the district haven't searched them out to speak before them. And they have public meetings. They're a public organization. They have these FCMAT meetings. And last month, at the end of September, a group of organizers from Oakland, Los Angeles, and Englewood, all of whom have had experience with trustees, went and showed up at their meeting and confronted them.
Yeah. it is so funny because this FitMat has this reputation. You think it's like, oh, this is a federally put together program and we're under this umbrella and we're required to do this. It turns out it's a special interest group, really put together, and they don't have the best interests of schools and school districts, really. They, especially if you have charter people on there. Oh, come on. This is, they've gotten away with it.
Hear that? That's
Oh,
that's
there
their
they
meeting.
are.
There they are.
Yeah.
Right?
But yeah,
And
it's no, I'm glad that somebody is attending those, and let's hear more about what they are and who they are. You know, that whole,
exactly, exactly. And
yeah,
you know, let's elevate FICMAT and understand what it is they're doing, and what they are is an extra layer of bureaucracy, because and they're a layer of bureaucracy that is unaccountable.
it's right.
Honest to God, unaccountable, right? So you wind up with, they held the protest they held. Here's the language on the YouTube channel, and I will link this to our to this episode, and also I'll put it on our Facebook page again. The protest was held against FICMAT, which usually is able to operate without public oversight. UTLA, which is the teachers union in Los Angeles, Oakland Educators Association, they came from Oakland, and SEIU and other unions completely in the state had been completely silent about this union busting nonprofit funded by the legislature and the government. The action was supported by Oakland Not for Sale, Parent Voices Oakland, Schools and Labor Against Privatization, We Are Free Inglewood, Real Moms of Magnolia Street, United Front Committee for a Labor Party, Inglewood Rising, and Voices Against Privatizing Public Education.
There you go.
There they are.
There they are.
So there's that. And that is a first. And that really is a first.
Yep. Okay.
All right. So there's that. And then, so you wanted to speak. Why don't you talk about what's going on at the county?
Yeah. A couple of things here that we're looking at. And you know, I think we talked about housing, and that we're going to continue to bring that up, workforce housing, teacher housing. It's a big issue, of course, where we live, and we continue to talk about teacher shortage and attracting teachers, retaining teachers. This is a big one. And now there is this bill, AB 2295. It would deem a housing development project an allowable use of any real property owned by a local and the LEA if the housing development satisfies certain conditions, etc. And it would, the bill would deem a housing development, the bill, among other things, would authorize the land use for development of housing for jointly used or jointly occupied by the LEA and other, any other parties. So teacher workforce housing, that's what we're talking about here. And I think there was a couple of other bills that were passed that kind of, you know, loosening things up for this to happen. And we could do that county level. We could do it.
And it can happen, and it's happening in more and more places. So we want to just honor the district. Berkeley has done it. Oakland has done it. San Francisco has done it. Daly City has done it. San Jose has done it. It's been done in Southern California, and it's honestly been done across the country in different places.
Partnerships, the collaborations with the city officials, really strong there. So, I mean, we could do that here, and that, you know, we electeds getting together and just decide, let's have a convening and let's do a study session on this, and then let's do some real brainstorming. And
exactly, because you can do it with the cities, your cities and counties, and their employees would be eligible too. That doesn't mean everybody has to do it, but one of the ways that people have recognized the need is that all of these places have waiting lists.
Yes, you know, and we have properties that are available for this, so that we
have properties, and we certainly can have union workers come and build those properties. So
yes.
there's a
So it's
tremendous amount.
also a job creating project as well. So I mean, there's just all good. It really is all good. We just need to have the will, to do this.
This is all about political will. That's all it is. That's all it is. And so there should be, at this point in time, we just have to bring it forward.
Yeah. So that's one thing. And then last thing, El Cerrito High School is having a college and career fair evening, and that's when they invite colleges to come. Well, last year they signed into law a new bill, AB 643, saying that apprenticeship programs shall be invited to these career fairs. And
Because, and they had to do that because the average counselor had not been educated to consider them. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what it came down to, right?
it's never, yeah, that's exactly.
Never occurred to them.
Never occurred to
Never
them.
occurred to them.
And it wasn't required, but as we see, it's just a logical thing. Not everybody's going to college, but everybody needs a job. So, and there are many, I hear all these stories about how they had to hire from Montana construction workers because we don't have enough here. So let's get on the ball there. And hope I intend to go. It's next Thursday at El Cerrito High at 5 o'clock, 5 to 7. And hopefully there'll be, because I'm putting the word out and hopefully more apprenticeship programs will be there, which would be wonderful for our students, for sure. So that was it. And then just about update on Uvalde. They just
Yes.
continue to make mistake after mistake after mistake. They're putting up, the parents are protesting because there's no action being done on these police officers who did nothing to protect their children.
Right.
And
And not only is there no action, they hired one of them. I mean, Uvalde police force, which was is in the process. They've only fired their chief, right?
Yeah.
So they fired the police chief,
Yeah.
and they have the rest of their police force who are having their the whole thing being investigated, right? And there were 400 officers from various agencies present that day, right? All of whom failed these children.
Yeah.
That's just the fact.
And the parents are angry. They want these people removed. They want more competent people there. So they're protesting by camping out in front of the district office. And so the district is putting up fences to what more?
Protect the district office employees from the parents.
The parents. I mean, where is this compassion
And the district hired, so one of the troopers, I think she was a state trooper, but anyway, an officer who was there, but not an employee of the school district, was fired or left the agency she worked for, and then then she got unbelievably rehired by the school district. And the judgment issues there are amazing to me. I mean, you would think you wouldn't have to be told that this group of 400 people, they're not eligible to be hired in Uvalde right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? They're just, of all the places they could go to work. And then anyway, they reversed it. There was tremendous pushback, of course, when this happened, and she was spotted in the schools. I mean, if nothing else, all of these folks are going to traumatize the children who are there. I mean, the last thing you want is to increase the trauma,
Yeah.
which is what you're doing. And anyway, they then reversed it and fired her. And you're getting all into all of the HR law things, but you didn't have to hire her.
Oh, geez, there's so much.
You didn't have to hire her. So where was the judgment in that?
Exactly. Yeah. So we need to learn a lot from this, and they need to, make better decisions for sure. So we're going to stay caught up on this for sure.
We really are. And honestly, I can understand. I understand that all of these people have to, they're all 400 of them have families. They all have to figure out what's going to happen. And it's not an easy process. I get that. And that this journey is going to be different for all the 400 people involved. I know that. And I also know that they have trouble, I'm sure they're very short-staffed and they have trouble finding people to take the officer jobs, right? But they're gonna have to find another answer because
Yeah.
this is not an answer. So if you're gonna have to bring in, whatever it's gonna be, you're gonna have to bring in people from outside, you're gonna have to reassign your team to do to work differently. You can't. What they did was really an unacceptable thing and really bad judgment. And as you said, we're going to continue following it. So that was in the news. Another thing that was in the news this week was an interesting thing that UCLA did. UCLA bought a bankrupt college in LA, in Los Angeles, to expand UCLA. And I thought that was, first of all, it's a very good thing in that they're able to expand. And what is happening with the University of California is they are becoming more diverse. I mean, there are good things happening overall for who the university is serving in the state of California. And so we need to, applaud them for going out and spending their money and buying the college, and looking forward to seeing what they're going to do with it.
That's good.
Yeah, no, that's a very good thing. I think the last thing I wanted to talk about was our two shout outs. And my first shout out, my two shout outs go to two young men that I met first when I was on the school board. And I met them when they were freshmen at Hercules High. And the first one is Alex Walker Griffin. And Alex Walker Griffin is about to become mayor of Hercules. And I first met him when he came to school board meetings to advocate on behalf of students. But Alex has come up with something right now that I totally applaud him for, and hope that other folks pay attention to and replicate. He has brought forward in the Hercules City Council an enforcement process for equal pay. So we all know the state of California has equal pay laws, but what they have is really, they don't have an enforcement process. So if you're not doing it, what happens to you? You get listed somewhere as not doing it, but there isn't really enforcement, except in Hercules. In Hercules, when you go and do business in Hercules, you have to sign an affidavit as a business operator that says that you're going to follow the law and not discriminate in your pay. There's no gender discrimination in pay. If you don't do that, if you do discriminate and they find out, you're reported, you can never do business in Hercules again. And that's what the affidavit says. You are prohibited from ever doing business. You're gonna have to close down, and you're prohibited from doing business in Hercules. And the thing that supports that is that there also is a new law in California that says if you have over 15 employees, you have to make your salaries public.
Yes.
There has to be some. So though you put those two things together, that is a big step forward in actually enforcing gender pay equity. So
Brilliant. Shout out.
Totally a shout out
Yeah.
to Alex Walker
I
Griffin.
first met him when I first ran for school board, and he was also running for city council, I believe. And he was always just amazing person, and great leadership, and smart as can be. So this is wonderful.
It's absolutely that he's a leader in gender equities. To me, it's just the beginning of a long life of leadership that I know he has ahead of him. The same time that I met Alex, when I was on the board, a young man, a freshman, came before us to advocate for a teacher at his school. And it was the beginning of a lot of advocacy that he went forward with in his life. And he ultimately became, so I met him when he was 14, and he became an intern for Barbara Lee, her office. He went to Fisk University in Nashville, where he graduated from. And this August, Justin Jones, his name, Justin Jones, 26-year-old Justin Jones from Hercules, was elected to the Tennessee State House to represent District 52 for the voters of Tennessee. Absolutely phenomenal. So Justin and Alex are both elected officials at the beginning of what are going to be incredible careers.
Very wonderful, wonderful human beings. Yes, absolutely. Great. We'll
So-
be hearing more from them for sure.
Shout out to young activists everywhere. That's
Yes,
what this is.
yes, absolutely.
So we thank you all for watching today. Please join us. Remember to vote for arts and music. And we'll see you again next time on Between Two Teachers.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.